as a director, as a board member for Equity Bank, and as we continue to grow, and as a guy who took a little feed operation and made it a huge feed operation, which geographically changes things. The whole point of this is culture. How do we continue to improve culture across a large footprint? How do you improve a culture, or how do you maintain the culture that you have?
How do you get big and still act small?
Yeah, way better said than I did.
Yeah.
How do you get big and still act small?
I think that's something that everyone tries to do, and not very many people are successful at it. To me, the first way that you have to do is that you have to empower people if you're going to make it that way. You've got to be able to give them the authority and the responsibility to make those decisions without having multiple layers that it has to go through to get approval. And we've seen it work both ways, and it's much, much better if you can hire the caliber of people that are capable of making those decisions. The other way, it's not time effective. It's not good for your customers, whether it be in banking or whether it be in cattle feeding. It's just an inefficient way of doing it. The leader trying to put his thumbprint on everything that happens, and people get frustrated. When they're frustrated, they're not happy at work, or else they're looking for other jobs, and you see your turnover increase. People like to be given responsibility.
I totally agree. Or you start hiring people who aren't used to or desiring responsibility. Yeah. And that's probably not a good recipe.
It's not good at all. At ILS and at Equity, we've got an atmosphere, a culture that's been built that does empower people, and it hasn't always been that way. It takes a while for a leader to learn. As he grows, he's made all of these decisions from the small operation to where then it's a big operation, and the leader was so used to making all those decisions when it was small, and he feels like that was the reason why it's been able to grow. But there gets to be a time, just like when I stepped back as chairman of ILS. I mean, we had grown up to where we're about 400 employees, and there were just things that needed to be done differently, that needed to be done more efficiently, both for economics and for the people. So.
And you've never been afraid of going and getting strong people. And I think that's another thing that leadership has to understand, is that this isn't somebody who's competing with me. This is somebody that's going to help multiply what we're trying to accomplish.
You've got to have people that they're strong, that they'll push back against you. That those are the good people, the ones that make you think, that push back against you. There's no doubt, but what the leader still has the authority to make that final decision. It isn't that at all. It's how's the best decision going to be made. We have to go through a lot of pain and a lot of wrong decisions and a lot of slow decisions in order to get that to change and become more efficient.
Technology helps efficiencies a bunch. And Innovative Livestock Services in 1978, technology was certainly very different. But I was thinking about this. What brought cattle to Kansas in the first place was technology. Cattle drives and cowboys were because there wasn't a technology to move cattle any other way. They're in South Texas, they're in Oklahoma, they're in other parts of where, ranch land was in the 1800s, 1870s, and the cowboys would walk literally walk or take their horses and drive cattle all the way to Wichita and Abilene and Dodge City, because that's where the railhead was, and the railhead was the technology, right?
But you think about how many pounds of beef that those cattle walked off from Texas to Kansas or on to Chicago as they came to the rail and moved on, and we had to find different ways. That's why the packing plants came to western Nebraska and Kansas and Texas. They went to the cattle because it was too inefficient and too costly to take the cattle to the packing plant.
So you're innovative, you're ILS, because you continue to add new technologies and new ideas in order to grow your product, in order to deliver a better product to ultimately the end user. And I know you're an end user too. You love eating beef. In fact, I don't think there's a license plate in your parking lot that doesn't say eat beef, which is awesome. But was it just a unique time in the late 70s, or what caused you to say, this is the right time for us to start growing what is today ILS?
You're giving me way too much credit, because I wasn't smart enough to know that was the right time. I had started out as a lender with farm credit, financing feed yards, cattle feeders. I also learned how to use the futures market. At that time, I was making about $1,500 a month. Wasn't a bad salary at that time, wasn't a great salary. But you could go to a lender, and if you would put up $100, he would put up the balance of the purchase price of the animal, and he would furnish the money for all of the feed and for all of the hedging costs that went into it. And you could turn that animal 2 to 2.5 times a year. So you were using that same $100 2 to 2.5 times. At that point, we were able, almost without fail, we were able to lock in $20 a head on the cattle sometime during the feeding period. Did we have them hedged all the time? No. Was there risk that the $20 wouldn't become available? Yes. But it continued to happen for quite a while. And if you figure you put up $100 and you make $20 a head and you turn it 2.5 times a year, that's a 50% return on your $100. Anyone can figure that's better than $1,500 a month working on a salary. I do believe that you have to be an early innovator to be really successful. You have to, as Gordie Howe used to say, you have to skate to where the puck's going to be, not where it's at. So
see, that's where there's value, right? And that's what people want. That's what the consumer wants. You know, whether it's when you're sitting at that white tablecloth and you know that you're going to have consistency in the product, or if you're dealing with your customer, be it in your line of work or in banking or in any sales opportunity, the price part. I found that interesting that when the Packers would come around, all you guys would do is bicker over the price. And again, you ended up kind of where you thought you would, you know, maybe a hair on one side or the other. And you wasted so much time, valuable time, where you could be innovating and coming up with better ways to provide value to your customers, to your partners, to everybody throughout that. And so I think you said it wasn't revolutionary, but from a business perspective, from a consumer's perspective, it's revolutionary in the fact that everybody ends up with a win-win, and that's really what a mutual benefit. When you create a mutual benefit because of the way you do business, that's what everyone really is looking for. So it doesn't surprise me that 85% of the business is done that way today.
If you hadn't ever done it that way before, it appeared to be revolutionary. If you look at it with common sense, it says, why in the hell haven't we been doing this for years before this? But we didn't have the genetic traits to go along with it to produce the quality. It took some other things rather than just a desire to do that to get us to where we're at today. I mean, it's really only been the last 5 years that the demand for, in my opinion, the last 5 years, the demand for beef has gotten really, really good. GLP drugs have helped in that as people lose weight and are losing muscle mass at the same time, they've got to have a way of keeping that from happening to where they can keep that muscle mass, and protein is good way of doing it, and beef is one of the highest quality proteins that you can have.
No question about it. Not even in the last 5 years, but in the last 5 months, we've seen that, fabled triangle completely shift, where it was at the base, the foundation of that was all these grains. And, interestingly enough, we're here in Kansas and we produce a lot of wheat. And that's really what, before Wichita was the air capital of the world, we were the wheat capital of the world.
Right.
And flour mills were our industry. But bottom line is, that's not a good foundation for somebody's diet. The foundation for that diet is great protein, readily bioavailable, so human beings can continue to flourish and feel good. And you're right. A phenomenal steak, or honestly any steak that's lean and it's delivered whether on a white tablecloth or at your grill at home, it's a great source of feeding America.
When people used to do a lot more physical work than what they do today, they had to have that protein. That was the only way that they could keep going. But our activities are so much different than what they were 50 years ago, 75 years ago, that people were looking at how do I lose weight. We were a sedentary group of folks that sat in an office all day long, and you just keep getting bigger and bigger as you eat, and no exercise. Fortunately, the exercise has come back, and we've realized the benefits of that.
Well, but some things are undeniable, and fundamentals are undeniable. And it's like the way that you said what Gordie Howe said about skating to where the puck. Well, of course you want to go to where the puck is. I mean, that's logical, right? Well, until you actually do that every single day in and day out, which requires a lot of hard work, right? You can't just do that and set it. You have to continue and follow through, and be a good business person and a good steward of relationships and all those other things that go along with it. But then it becomes an undeniable truth, and I think what you're talking about today is it's undeniable that the reason why beef has gone up is it's the right fuel that we need to get the job done.
That's what it comes down to.
That's a long way for me to say eat beef that's on that license tag out there. Or beef that's what's for dinner. That's what everybody needs to call ILS, Innovative Livestock Services, and just listen to when you're on hold. It's not some silly jazz music. It's somebody telling you, well, what's that voice?
Well, Sam Elliott.
Sam Elliott
was a good representative for the industry. He's one of those fellows that people just naturally like to listen to him, and he talks common sense, and they say, hey, this just makes a little bit of sense to me.
Doing business, I think this is so interesting, Lee, because you started out as a lender in banking, and you know the fundamentals of that side of the business, and you've come all the way for full circle now, where you spent a lot of time with banks throughout, just in different places, and now as a director for Equity Bank, and being with Equity Bank through becoming a publicly traded bank and going from the NASDAQ to the New York Stock Exchange. These are exciting things, but those exciting things don't really matter unless we do those fundamentals, which
That's exactly right.
making sure that we empower people, making sure we got good people. As Brad Elliott said, we want the right people on the bus. And then making sure maybe we move them on the bus so they're in the right position on the bus so we can talk to each other and empower people. Greg Kossover said just recently on the Who Builds Equity podcast that we are going to use the best ideas. Doesn't matter necessarily where they come from. And that's what's, you've been an entrepreneur your whole life. Entrepreneurs just take the best ideas, and ego kind of has to set itself to the side. Have you consistently seen that as Equity Bank continues to grow, kind of similar to how ILS grew by acquisition and through organic growth, taking care of our customers along the way, that we can continue to deliver because we remain entrepreneurial?
What I've seen in my time at Equity is that as we've grown, and it's 400% larger today than when we merged American State Bank with Equity. It's the quality of people, that decision making that, I think Brad will tell you himself that it was hard for him to go a different way in managing. But since he brought Rick Sims in as president, and he's got Julie Huber as his chief operating officer, that Julie's one of the best operations people I've ever seen in my life. And Brad is using those people, and he's spending his time looking at putting the deals together. He and Rick work together daily on how are we going to organically grow our bank, as well as the mergers and the purchases that we're making. There's never just one way of doing something. You have to do all things well. It's a trial and error process in management. Maybe you don't make the switch completely to begin with. You got to try it a little bit at a time to see that it works before you roll it out. And if you're making that switch totally on the front end, you're a pretty big gambler.
Yeah.
Because you don't know that it's going to work. I've got a belief, and people tell me that I'm crazy in the way that I look at it. But I think in order to be a leader, you've got to be able to make a decision with about 65% of the total information that's available to make that decision. And the closer you get to the 90% number, the less deals that are still going to be available. Because the people that can make it at 65 and 70 and 75%, they're going to have all the good deals bought up by that time. And Brad is someone who knows his business as well as anybody I've ever been around. He is brilliant as a banker. But he didn't get that way in 1 year to where, well, I'm starting here. Yeah, he had pretty good knowledge to begin with and experience. But it's taken those years, and I believe it's 24 deals now that he's put together. It's taken all of those to give him that experience to where he can do it. We're as good at Equity Bank of acquiring other banks and melding them into our bank, and continuing on in the operations, because we've done it so many times, and he knows what works and he knows what doesn't work, and we've got as good a people now as I have ever seen it at Equity.
I agree with you, and I think it's because people are capable of being able and going and making a decision. And Rick Sims talks about, get it 80%. We'll clean up the other 20%.
Yep.
And by the way, the customer, I think, appreciates that because you can move faster. You can be more transparent on the way we're doing things because the customer says, I'm used to this being a bid process, for instance, because it's kind of like a commodity working with the bank. Well, until you go through the conversation with Equity Bank and the talent that we have and all the things that we can offer, once the deal's done, that's when the work really starts. And you better make sure that you choose the right partner to do the deal with. And that's why Equity Bank is successful carrying forward with some of these acquisitions, because the people that work there feel comfortable taking action and responsibility that delivers for the customer.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, as a man who is in the Cattle Feeders Hall of Fame, elected in 2011, right? Or elected's the wrong word. Memorialized. What's the right word there, Lee? Chosen. He was the chosen, which by the way, there's a guy named, I think it's JT Simplot, who is a famous man in the cattle industry. And people know that every time they drive by one of those golden arches, because he was a potato guy and he was a cattle guy. And both of them are kind of what made McDonald's get to where it is. But he got elected, or chosen rather, after Lee Borck to the Cattle Feeders Hall of Fame. So,
when I went in, and I'm being as honest as I can, I never understood why, because there were so many good people and pioneers out there that had done a lot of things, and I didn't realize the marketing side of it had the impact at that point that it has had. But I'm pretty humbled by the people that are in that Hall of Fame and what they have done to warrant being there. Everybody's got a different way of contributing and helping the industry become better. But there's some really cool people that are in there,
including Lee Borck.
Well, that remains to be seen.
Hey, Lee, you've what's always impressed me about you as an incredibly successful man is your humility, as you just said, but also the human aspect of it. You care about people. You actually spend a lot of time with people and a lot of young people, and you've influenced their lives and helped them go to their next level. What's made you continually do that?
I had several people that helped me through my life. We call them mentors, of people that you learn from. But youth is always the future. Look at me. I'm damn near 80 years old, and my time is limited. The only thing I've got is experience. If I can pass those experiences on to younger people, and I do believe I've done it through my whole life. It's been important. Jackie and we have scholarship programs for multiple kids that to go through Kansas State University. It's important that if you have the experience and they've been good experiences, that you share them with other people, and you're sharing with younger people because they're the ones that are going to make this thing go in the future. It's a hell of a lot more fun to work with young people than it is with old people. Young people don't know that you can't do something. They believe everything can be done. Older people, well, that's never going to work. We've tried it before, and it's never going to work. Well, things change as you go along, but working with young people is one of the things that I've enjoyed the very most in my career, and I hope I never quit till the day I die.
Well, thanks to you and to Jackie for all you do and have invested time and resources in young people. I appreciate that very much. Lee, I'm grateful to know you, and I'm grateful that you shared your story and some insights on how we can all get better and continue to get better. Thanks for being on Who Builds Equity, and I appreciate all you've done for the US of A, and the beef industry is better off because of you, man.
Appreciate it.